I've owned my MX-5 for around 2 to 3 years now, and to be honest with you, in the space of that time, I've made some modifications that, yeah, I do actually regret. You see, I daily drive my MX-5, and one of the modifications that I first did to the car was an aftermarket exhaust. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I did think it was a good idea. I mean, you know, I'd always wanted to kind of hear my car a little bit more. And of course, being into my modified Japanese cars, I mean, they all have that big old single exhaust exit at the back. So of course I thought, you know, why not? Let's buy a stainless steel back box delete loud exhaust. Let's hear the engine. And yes, for the first 10 minutes, it was good fun. But after that, it just got a little bit annoying, to the point where it genuinely puts you off doing long drives. Like, it's just something that you just don't really want to put yourself through that much, especially when you're on the highway or the motorway, whatever you want to call it, and your car is sitting at a certain RPM and it's just this long consistent drone in your ear. As you can imagine, it can be very annoying. And that is just a back box delete. That's just the back box. You know, that's just a muffler delete, essentially. So if you had a full straight pipe or an even louder exhaust, I cannot imagine what it's like to live with that on a daily basis. The thing is, it makes sense if it's a track build, but even then, even if it is a track build and this car is purely for the track, a lot of tracks these days do have exhaust regulations, meaning that if your car is too loud, you will not be allowed on the track. But straight piping your daily driver or just making it too loud in general, it's never really a good idea. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of nice mufflers out there. There are a lot of nice aftermarket exhausts you can buy. And one of my friends who recently bought an NC Miata actually put a really nice aftermarket exhaust on his car. Yes, it was more expensive than most of the others, but it actually sounds quite nice and it doesn't burst your eardrums every time you drive it. Whereas mine is cheap, it's a muffler delete, it's loud, and yeah, it gets in your nerves. So please think carefully and do your research before buying an aftermarket exhaust, because you can be making a very bad decision. Trust me, I learnt the hard way. It's just going to waste you more money and time in the long run. One thing I quickly just want to say is 90% of you watching are not subscribed. To be completely honest with you, I would really appreciate it if you did hit that subscribe button. And the good thing is, it's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. So you may as well hit subscribe. Anyway, back to the video. One modification that I was very close to doing, which I'm very glad I didn't, is putting in bucket seats to the MX-5. I'm so glad I did not do this. On a track car, and if it is just a track or weekend car, it's probably okay because you're not going to be using it for long distances, or you're not going to really be using it on a daily basis. But if this is your daily driver, if this is your everyday car, do not buy bucket seats. Bucket seats may look comfortable, but I promise you they are not. They have very little support in them. You're always fixed in a certain position when sat in them, and you cannot adjust most of them. And this means on a daily use, they are extremely uncomfortable to live with. The thing is, there's actually a lot of great aftermarket seat options out there that are a lot more sporty-esque, if you know what I mean. I mean, Recaro are kind of the best at this. They make nice fitted sporty seats that are still comfortable, but you can also use when you're, when you're doing your spirited driving. And they look good as well. Let's face it, a lot of people get bucket seats because they look cool. And they do look pretty cool. However, unlike bucket seats, they still keep you comfortable after long drives, and they're just easier to live with in general. I'm so grateful that I kept my factory seats and didn't swap them out for bucket seats. They do the job. They're comfortable and they're heated as well. So what's not to love? I actually know someone with a Mark II MR2, and he bought bucket seats for that car and sold them a week later. So I mean, that pretty much says enough. And they're quite expensive as well. It's quite an expensive modification. So it's something that I would definitely think about first before buying. If you really must buy bucket seats though, just make sure that you test fit them first, that they fit in your car and that you actually find them comfortable to sit in, because bucket seats could be a lot of money, and you don't want to go through all of that hassle just to find out that they don't even fit. This next modification is actually something that I've been thinking about doing to my car in the near future. So yes, call me a hypocrite, but it is what it is. And I am talking about lowering springs, coilovers, especially cutting the springs. I have wanted to get some BC Racing coilovers though for the MX-5. Or maybe some lowering springs. But look, here's the downsides to it. The thing is, they look great. When you lower your car and you have some nice wheels, you know, you got a nice set of wheels, you lower the car by an inch or two, yes, it looks very, very nice. And when you're pushing the car around the twist and turnies, you know, you're doing a little bit of spirited driving, yes, it feels good. And yes, it does improve the handling in some cases. The thing is though, suspension is very, very easy to get wrong. It is very easy to get wrong. And without the right amount of research or correct setup, you can get it very, very wrong. The thing is, coilovers or springs or whatever is one of the things that you really can't cheap out on. There are a lot of people who will buy cheap springs or they'll buy cheap coilovers, they'll fit them to their car, they won't get the correct alignment or whatever, and the wheels will rub, everything will just feel awful, it actually won't be better at handling, it'll be worse, which kind of can, you know, it kind of defeats the point of why you're buying that upgrade in the first place. The thing is though, I do get it, like when you do drop a car by an inch or two, it does look a lot better. Like a lowered car does tend to look a little bit better, but for such a poor ride, it really, really isn't worth it. Especially if you cut the springs. Never cut the springs. Never cheap out and cut the springs. It may cost you nothing, but cutting the springs to your suspension is very, very dangerous. The biggest issue when it comes to cutting your springs is that you've ruined a coil that has been tested in a factory, so you're altering that range of motion that was originally tested in the factory. The thing that always makes me laugh as well is you have to cut the rest of the springs the exact length to the other ones to be able to have even lengthed springs on all four sides of the car, which is a lot harder to do than people think. So please, please, please stay away from messing with the springs that are already in the car. I understand it's cheap, but yeah, you just don't want to mess about with that stuff. And of course, cheaping out. The ride will be terrible. You just will not want to drive your car. Trust me, it's not worth it. A lot of people do tend to regret lowering their car though, because it does make the drive a lot more harsh. You feel every bump in the road, and potholes are your worst enemy. Not just that though, going over speed bumps and going up ramps becomes very, very difficult. But if you do want to lower your car, just make sure you do your research and you do not cheap out. Another modification that you'll probably regret doing is weight reduction. The thing is, taking it off your door cards, taking away your rear seats, may seem like a good idea to save weight, and sometimes, especially things like seats, they do weigh quite a lot. But when it comes to your door cards and, you know, just little creature comforts that don't really, you know, they don't seem like a lot, but they actually add up. First of all, they're not gonna actually save you that much weight in the long run. Like, sure, they might save a couple of kg here and there, but realistically, nowhere near enough for you to notice a massive difference. I can see having like a 4-seater car or a 5-seater and taking out the 2 or 3 rear seats. I do kind of understand that, because that could save quite a bit of weight. But at the end of the day, if you're going to remove door cards, rear seats, AC, you are removing the creature comforts of your car. And the thing is, maybe if it's a fully track focused car, if it's a car just made for the track, or it's a race car, yeah, sure, that does make sense. However, if it is your daily driver, if it is the car you're going to drive every single day, you know, you're going to regret these decisions. I mean, you really have to weigh up the options, which I know that's a really bad joke, but you have to weigh up the options here, because you're losing a tiny little bit of weight, which realistically, are you going to actually feel for something that is way more valuable? You know, having AC in the middle of summer is a lot nicer than having a car that is slightly lighter. Or if you need to pick up some friends, or I don't know, anyone, it doesn't matter who it is, and you need them rear seats for something, then, you know, you're going to regret taking them out. Saying that, I do think it is quite cool when I see something like a Type R with no rear seats. Because, yeah, race car, it is cool, don't get me wrong, I do get it, I understand it completely, but you really have to consider, is it worth it? You know, is the difference that you're going to feel worth the creature comforts that you're going to be, you know, disposing, basically? And most of the time, no, you're not. It's not going to be worth it. And it's a very similar point to the exhaust. When you start taking out things like sound deadening, then it can just be so difficult to live with. The constant drone of the road noise in the car, it's just, I don't know if it's worth it, but sometimes you have to experience these things to then make a decision. And that's one thing I find really funny about this video is we've all probably done something, you know, one of the modifications in this video, and you don't realize that it's a bad idea when you're doing it, and then when you've actually lived with it and you've realized how bad it is, you just never do it again. You never touch that modification again. I do think though, if you tend not to cheap out on modifications and you properly do your research, you shouldn't really run into too many issues. Especially do not cheap out on modifications. I think cheaping out is the worst thing you can do. It's a lot better saving up and buying something that's actually good quality. It will just save you a lot less issues and money in the long run. For me, it was definitely buying an exhaust that was way too loud. I think I would not make that same mistake. I would love to know what modifications that you've done to your car that, you know, you've kind of regretted after doing them. I feel like there's a lot more I've missed in this video, so yeah, it would be interesting to hear some of yours in the comments. And if you did enjoy watching, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. I make videos like this all the time, so feel free to check out the other ones, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.